Hello, everybody, and welcome to the As You Are podcast. My name is Leslie Vandergans, founder of Enso Coaching and Consulting, and I am here to interview my former boss, actually. I was going to say colleague, but you were my boss, Chris Heller, who is the president of Movoto. Hi, Chris.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, when you're in HR, though, you're kind of the boss.
I mean, I wouldn't say that, but yeah, HR. It's a funny little world. But we had the pleasure of working with each other for several years at Keller Williams,
Yes.
when you were the CEO over there, and now you've ventured off and you're working at this really amazing company called Movoto. Can you tell everybody a little bit about what Movoto does and why it's so cool?
Yeah, we own and operate Movoto.com, which is the 5th largest portal. So most people have heard of Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com, Redfin. We're the 5th largest one. So we're the only one that's not a big public company. We're privately owned. So we compete against
benefits. There are benefits there, yeah.
Benefits and challenges. Yeah. We don't have billions of dollars like they do, but we do okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so what do you guys do? Like, what is the thing that keeps you guys going?
Bottom line is we help consumers who are in the process of buying and selling homes. Right? Most of them find our site because they're searching for homes, or they're searching for the value of their home, or they're seeing what their neighbor's home sold for. And a lot of these people don't have strong connections or any connections to a service provider. So when they come onto our site, if they want and are in need of, we connect them with great agents and teams to help them on the real estate side. We connect them with mortgage companies to help them on the mortgage side. So basically, we help these buyers and sellers get connected to people that can help them with their goals and their aspirations.
So what, when you're thinking about the organization as a whole, what kind of drove the focus? Like, why did you guys step into this arena?
So the company started. So I was originally on the board of the company, and then joined them full time in 2019. In 2020, we had an opportunity to buy Movoto.com, and it was a unique opportunity because it was a company that we shouldn't have been able to buy, and we and someone else would have bought them, except for it was in the early days of the pandemic, and no big publicly traded company, or for that matter, any company was looking to raise money and buy anything. Right? It's like in April and May of 2020, people were wondering if the world was going to survive.
Exactly.
But we kind of ignored that and said, "Hey, here's an opportunity. We need to take it."
Yeah.
So when we bought this company, it refocused us on, now we have a company that has, tens of millions of consumers, on the site each month that we need to figure out how to help and then how to monetize.
Oh, I love that. So, what's when you're thinking about day-to-day challenges, like what are, from a business standpoint, what are the biggest challenges that you guys are facing on an ongoing basis?
So there's day-to-day challenges that leaders face in any business. In our business uniquely, our business revolves around traffic to our site. So the number of people that visit our site, and number of eyeballs on our site. So the challenge is competing in that world for traffic, and what can we do to make our site more engaging? What can we do to have more people end up there to begin with? So those are some of the challenges at the highest level.
Yeah.
And then there's fulfillment, right? There's the taking that consumer, finding them the right agent or the right team to be able to help them, make sure that relationship gets off to a good start and continues on. So and then there's there's team and personnel challenges and people challenges and all those things, right?
Yeah.
Business is challenges.
Yeah.
Right? That's what business is.
Yeah. So as the president, what do you spend most of your time focusing on?
But although we've been around, I've been with the company for 5 years now, and the company's been around for about 7 or 8. We still feel like, and I think essentially are a startup company. So because of that, I don't sit in a big corner office and analyze spreadsheets all day. I'm in the trenches doing everything and I do focus on very strategic, giant partnerships and M&A conversations. We're always looking, at opportunities. And at the same time, it's not uncommon for me to have a Zoom call a day, every day with a real estate agent or a team to help them, succeed on our platform.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit, and then, like helping our team, creating scripts or reviewing scripts, or, every aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's always, it's a funny thing in the startup world, right? Where resources are a little bit more constrained, that the people who are at the leadership level are literally jacks of all trades. You just have to kind of get in and get your hands dirty, right? Versus, some of those larger corporations where there's
Yeah. And I don't know if you have to, but you're not going to be successful.
Touche. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about your path here, because it's one of the things that's so fascinating. And, as we're kind of thinking about this year and who we wanted to invite and who we wanted to have conversations with, I very specifically remember, when we were at Keller Williams, that there was a fireside chat with Chris Heller where we talked a little bit about, your kind of history and your growth, both, when you started as a real estate agent, built a very massive, massive real estate team in California, and then moved into this, major role at the largest real estate franchise in the world, really.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, what that path and what that journey has been like?
Yeah. Like the only time I think about it is when someone like you asked me about it. So, it's not something I spend any time thinking about. No, and if I look back, it's like, it is kind of crazy and magical and all those things. But really, it was just a bunch of hard work and getting results. Like as you mentioned, I got into real estate. I got talked into getting into real estate. It wasn't even like, on my list of things to do or want to do. But then I decided, okay, if I'm going to be in this, I need to figure out how to be successful and get what I want. And I did. I did that for many years, but knowing, like, in the back of my mind, it was always preparing me for the next thing. In fact, I think everything I do, what I'm doing right now, is preparing me for the next thing. I just didn't know what the next thing was going to be.
Yeah.
But I also knew, and always have operated and still do, under the philosophy or the premise that if I get results at a high level, that opportunities will come from those, and opportunities will present themselves, and that's always happened. So that's how Keller Williams happened. Like, I was one of the top Keller Williams agents in the world. They understood, leadership understood what I did, how I operated. There was a need at the time for someone to help them expand Keller Williams globally. And I knew nothing about that, and they didn't think I knew anything about it, but they knew that I had an unusual amount of bandwidth. They knew that I was really good at figuring things out. They knew that I always did the right thing and did the right thing. And so those were the basic. They say, hey, this is someone we would want to work with and could trust. And so when they called and said, would you be interested in helping us do this? I was like, yeah. And I didn't know what I was saying yes to. and kind of the good news was neither did they, right? Because no one in the company knew how to start Keller Williams, in another country.
International, right? Yeah.
But I had 2 years to prepare for that. So from the time I got the call to when I actually stepped in the role was 2 years. So I had 2 years to do a lot of research, figure things out. The first year was figuring out how to work within a large company,
right?
Going from the leader of a real estate team to now being someone within a large organization, and then figuring out how we were going to do what they hired me to do,
right?
Which was like to start Keller Williams in other countries.
Yeah.
And so the first year was just a lot of painful meetings with attorneys and law firms and creating the documents and everything we would need to actually be able to start in another country.
Right.
And then really looking at what we did as a company and how would that translate and what would we have to do to make it relevant in another country. And then knowing that every country is different.
Right.
So that was a lot of the energy the first 2 years, but by the second year we launched our first country, and over the next 5 years we're in over 20 different countries. And I think at that point I had I think I probably had exceeded expectations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think they thought I could do it, but they weren't sure if it would work, and it worked, and it worked really, really well.
Yeah.
And so then there was a opportunity for a leadership change in the company, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like the obvious choice to become the next, CEO of a company.
That's so crazy. So I want to go back when you mentioned that it was kind of in you to always want to, exceed expectations or perform, or, where did that come from? Like, what was that in you?
Who knows for sure? Like we all think, when you look back at your life, especially at childhood, right? There's things that happen in your childhood that
Mm-hmm.
like help shape who you are. So we all
Mm-hmm.
have those things. I mean, there's some areas that I could look back at and say, this is probably the the genesis of that, or maybe one of the things that contributed to that. This is funny. I've never even really talked about this. So in second grade, I had my best friend lived across the street, and he was very small for his age and young, and I was kind of young. And up until second grade, school was very hard for me.
Mm.
My mom worked in the school. I was always like getting help and
Mm.
everything. So one day him and his parents said he was staying back in second grade. And so I thought, oh, that's a good idea. I should do that too. So I stayed back in second grade. Well, in retrospect, it was a good idea, and
Mm.
it benefited me a lot, because from then on, I did really well in school.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that caused me to do well is when you're in elementary school and you stay back, in the eyes of all the kids, you
Yeah.
flunked.
Yeah.
And so I think I was on a mission to show them that I wasn't stupid and I wasn't dumb. And I didn't flunk,
Yeah.
and that I could do that. So I think that was probably the beginning of the overachievement part. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll show you. I remember, I think my freshman year in high school, I wanted to go out for the basketball team, and we had my family had gone on vacation, so I missed like the tryouts. And I came back and talked to the coach. He said, "Hey, sorry you missed it." And I like, "Oh, I want to be on the team. I'll do it." And I was at the practice, and I like kind of wouldn't take no for an answer. So he said, "All right, well, you can run lines during the practice, and then we'll talk afterwards." So while the team was practicing, I just kept running, from the baseline to the free throw line, back to the baseline to the half court line, back to the other free, like just kept running like for an hour. And he was like, "This kid's crazy." And then I was on the team.
That's
So
insane.
there's all those little things that you say,
Right.
okay, well, you start to see, okay, if I really apply myself, or if I really put in the effort, that I can start to accomplish things.
Yeah. Well, and as a second grader, to have the kind of awareness to say, I'm struggling, maybe this is a good idea, I'll just stay back a year. That's amazing. I mean, that's not a normal thing for a 7, 8-year-old kid to have that level of awareness.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, who knows what I was really thinking
Right.
back then, but that's the story
Yeah.
that is in my head.
That's so crazy.
It could have been my mom's idea. Could have
Yeah.
been,
Yeah.
it probably was a combination of things.
Yeah.
In reality,
Right.
but it was. I remember it wasn't a big like deliberation. It was like pretty definitive. Like, oh yeah, this.
This makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So then when you get into real estate, like, how did that happen? What was that path for you?
I had my real estate license
Mhm.
because I had when I was a sophomore in college, my dad called me and said, "Hey, you're going to get your license and come up to Lake Tahoe and sell timeshares for the summer," because he was managing a resort up there. And I said, "Okay," and I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what a timeshare was. I didn't. So, anyways, he gave me a bunch of old real estate tests and said, "Hey, you got to study these and then take a 2-day crash course on a Saturday and Sunday, and then take the real estate exam on a Monday." So for like 2 weeks, that's all I did. Took the course, passed, went up there, and I was so I was pretty quiet, and I'm by nature I'm an introvert, and but even in college, it probably got worse. Like I got more introvert, so I was very shy and quiet. I didn't like to speak. I wouldn't take any college classes where you had to give a presentation. I wouldn't sign up for them. If I got to the first class and they handed out syllabus and said there was an oral presentation, I'd drop the class. I was like, there was like, it was a hard no. So I get up there and he's, all right, follow this salesperson and this couple around on this presentation, do the 90-minute presentation, tour of the resort, blah, blah, blah. And I come back and he goes, all right, now it's your turn. And then I had to do it. And it's something that in a relatively short period of time, I got pretty good at. And I was able to learn a presentation and give a presentation. And I don't think at the time I thought of myself as competitive, but I'm highly competitive with myself.
Right.
With trying to do better and get better. And so that summer job turned into, like a 3-year job.
That's
and
crazy.
Going to school part-time, but doing this full-time. Along the way, I met a real estate broker who walked into the resort one day. I then moved to San Diego. And for 3 years, he kept recruiting me. Calling me, sending me handwritten notes every time I saw him. And by this time, I'd gotten out of sales and started a marketing company with a partner. And that was a very, I'll call it a big growth year. Learned a lot, nightmare situations. But anyways, I went back to this real estate broker and said, hey, I'm going to start over on my own without my partner, started a marketing company. And during that meeting, when I was talking to him about leasing an office, he talked me into getting into real estate. And I said, all right, I'll give it a try.
What was it specifically that caused you to say, okay, I'll go to real estate?
It was really, I think it was with his persistence.
Yeah.
He's a very charismatic salesperson, high energy, big guy, 6'4", ex-Marine. And this has been going on for 3 years, mind you, right? So it wasn't just this one conversation. But he kind of caught me at a weak moment. And I was like, do I really want to go start this company again that I just had this nightmare partnership with? And, it's risky. And so I said, yeah, okay, I'll give it a try. But I said, if I'm going to do it, I'm not going to sell houses.
Right.
If I'm going to do it, I want to sell big stuff.
Yeah.
Like big buildings, and which I knew nothing about. He goes, okay, well, you can be a commercial agent. So then after 30 days of, he gives me a piece of paper, and he goes, all right, go in, pick an area to work. So I picked this like industrial business complex area in San Diego. And he said, go into these businesses and ask them these questions. I don't think I ever asked him, why am I doing this? Or what, but I just did it. So I'd get in at like 6:30 in the morning, hit the streets like at 7:30 when businesses are opening up, do that till like 5 o'clock when business closed, come back. I'd have all these sheets filled out. I did that for like 30 days, like every day for 30 days. And knew nothing more 30 days later than I did when I started. Like, why am I doing this? And what do the answers to these questions even mean? In the meantime, when I was 20 selling timeshares, I bought a townhome in this neighborhood in Carlsbad. And there was a real estate agent that was very prominent in that neighborhood. And she also was in the office that I was now working in. And her cubicle was across from mine. And I was watching, and she was the number one agent in the office. And I was watching what she was doing as an agent now and as a consumer. And I was like, I could do this. I guess I could sell houses. So I retired from being a commercial agent after 30 days and started my residential career. And became, I was rookie of the year in San Diego my first year. I was highly driven and highly motivated. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just, blood, sweat, and tears figured it out.
Well, and it's funny, you mentioned like you're not naturally an extrovert. And I think a lot of people have the perception or the persona that in order to be a successful real estate, you have to be this like gregarious, outgoing sales personality. And yet here you are, rookie of the year, you had a massive business, like climbed through the ranks. You're still, a major leader in real estate. What do you think? I mean, you said driven, like, what do you think does it take? Or is that is that something that we've created in our mind?
Is it, it certainly doesn't hurt, right? the that burning desire, that hunger. I started this this weekend. I saw a video of my like first real mentor in my life. Mm. And he's like 80 years old now, and his it was a video of him on a podcast, and I need to write him a letter. So I started it this weekend, and I'll finish it. And I remember the first time I saw him was at a big event, and he had agents up on the stage, like a panel, and he's interviewing them. And I was in the back of the audience. It's like 2,000 people in the audience. And I remember there, like, just feeling like this anger, this like I should be up there. I need to be that good. Now I would never ask to be up there. I would never even, and probably didn't really want to be up there. But like, and so I was just like, there's a true burning, like a physical felt the burning, and that desire to grow and get better and achieve is still there.
Yeah.
So that's always been there.
Well, how would you, if you were coaching, guiding somebody that, wanted to achieve success, but maybe didn't necessarily have the burning desire internally, like how would you coach them to?
That's hard because I think the easiest way to find people that are going to be successful is find the people that have that desire. Like I always say, when I'm hiring someone, I'll choose desire over, skill or anything else. Yeah. Because if they have the desire, they'll figure it out, or they'll be willing to learn, everything else. You can teach them everything else. It's hard. You can't really teach desire and motivation. But to answer your question, I think it's a couple things I'd look at. One is trying to find out what's important to them. Like they may have the desire, but they may not have discovered it.
Right.
Because they haven't discovered why they're here.
Right.
And what, why.
Like ethereally on Earth. Why are you here?
Yeah. And so, I'd help them peel back the onions, layers of the onion to get to like, what's truly important to them. And I think when people get in touch with that, it's much easier for them to move forward, much easier for them to do the things that they, that they don't want to do or that are uncomfortable for them to do. So that's one way I'd coach them. The other is, again, look at, it depends on what they're doing, but if the, let's say, I guess it doesn't really matter what they're doing. I would have them create goals. And maybe it starts with small goals. Like, all right, here's the things you got to achieve, and I'd just have them start with the things that are most uncomfortable. And if they're not willing to do that, then you got to ratchet it down.
Yeah.
But, those are the areas. We talked before we started. We talked about things we learned from leaders, and as I mentioned to you, there's things I've learned of what not to do, and things I've learned what to. The former boss at our last company we worked together at, he one day he said to me, "Don't try to figure out how to work with different types of people. Just find the people that can work with you the way you are." And I thought, well, that makes it easy, because then I just, I don't need to change. I don't need to be better. I just find people that can deal with me the way I am. And I realized that is really limiting. And that is, and wait, if I'm not willing to become more versatile or more flexible, or, grow in these other areas that are challenging for me, then I'm never going to get better. I'm not going to get I'm just going to be the same I am at.
Yeah.
So I didn't, I took that advice for a while and then figured out maybe that wasn't the best advice.
What was it that caused you to say, hey, wait a minute, this is not, it's easy. Like, that's an easy path, right? Yeah. Like, the easy path is just like, go find people who are like you and can work around, your shortcomings, et cetera.
Yeah.
That's easy. But what was it?
It didn't feel good.
Interesting.
Like it just, having people have to deal with my shortcomings is like, that's not their, they shouldn't have to deal with that. So it just didn't feel good.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, I need, I don't like being this way, or I don't like that, but so I need to figure out how to be different, how to change.
What were some of the things that you, when you think back to, okay, well, these are the things that I don't like that I do need to kind of address. What are some of those things?
Oh,
Or what were some of those things, rather?
it's a long list. It's it's everything from, you know, I don't know if this is universally true, but for me, because I was so focused and driven and motivated, I thought everyone else should be that way.
Mm.
And I didn't need pep talks or that boys or pats on the back. I've come to learn I like them, but I never thought I needed them. Or
Right.
So
you were going to go anyway.
yeah. So
right.
so why did I need to do that for anyone else? So one of my shortcomings was just acknowledging other people and their efforts and everything. Just being a good cheerleader and coach and manager and leader. I just wasn't that for a long time. The communicating, because I process things internally, and my mind works fast and I process things quickly, but I oftentimes I don't realize that I haven't communicated those things or given people enough information to be able to go do the things they need to do at the level they need to do it at.
Yeah.
I was really clear on what needed to be done.
Right.
And okay, this is what we need to do, and this is how we're going to do it. But people operate better when they understand why and okay, why is this important, or why are we doing this, or those type of things.
Yeah.
So those are things that I continue to get better at. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's important as leaders to kind of recognize like the stuff that comes up for us. And we talk about this a lot on this podcast, like the stuff that comes up for us, our baggage shows up in really weird ways, especially, our triggers will come up and then we kind of respond and react to that trigger rather than, really being purposeful about what the goal is or what we're trying to achieve with our people. Right. And, and another thing that you just pointed out was like the things that we could be missing from a diversity standpoint. And I'm not talking about diversity in the context of, DEI as a function of race specifically, but DEI in the context of like what happens, how much more fruitful is it for businesses to be able to surround themselves with people who are really, truly different and challenge the way that we think and challenge the way that we are.
Yeah.
And how much more can we potentially accomplish if we do kind of surround ourselves with people who kind of push us a little bit, like rub us a little differently,
Yeah, how much can we grow and
exactly. So I want to just really briefly go back to the marketing company, because you definitely took a minute and said, oh, that was so challenging. And it's like that was like the first business. I mean, besides, doing the timeshare work with your dad, like what was like the big thing that you took away from that, that business?
So we started an inbound call center, me and my roommate.
Mm-hmm.
My roommate was older than me. I was, early 20s. He was probably 5 or 6 years older. Actually, I don't know if I ever know how old he was. But let's say he was 30 or 32. And so we had 2 800 lines. I had a 2-story townhome. We had a phone upstairs, phone downstairs, 800 numbers. People would call, people would receive mail, direct mail, and then there would be a toll-free number to call to claim their prize. We were who they called. Mm-hmm. And so then we would set an appointment for them to go pick up their prize, go through a presentation. We marketed for timeshare resorts. And we became really successful really fast. I mean, within 6 months, we went from the 2 of us in my townhome to an office with 30, 35 employees.
Oh my gosh.
We had bought, office furniture and desks for 35 employees and chairs and computers back then. This was in the early 80s, about 35, 40 computers. We did all this and we did it with the money we were making. Right, we weren't financing it. We didn't go get a loan.
Right.
He bought a limo because he liked to drink and didn't want to drink and drive. And I would take the limo to the bank every week to make our deposits, and bank tellers would see me roll up in the limo and come out. Anyway, so the business went like this. Yeah. And then as quickly as it did that, it went it cratered.
Huh.
And it got really, really bad. He started doing alcohol and drugs a lot.
Gosh.
I didn't know how to deal with it. I'm a young.
You're young.
Yeah, it got so uncomfortable. Stopped staying at my home. Stopped living in my condo with a townhome with him. Stay at my girlfriend's place. He started going off the deep end. Business started cratering. The end was inevitable. I remember the day I had to go in. Now, at this point, we had all the employees, but included in the employees were my brother, my girlfriend, her brother, her mom, my mom, her sister. Like, I had all these family members working for me, and all these other people that became like family. And I remember the day I had to go in and tell them to all go home. And say, gosh. You're not going to get paid again.
Yeah.
You're not going to get paid. You need to go home.
Yeah.
And close it down. And so it was dealing with him, and then dealing with the family business. The combination of those two things were just, also for someone who didn't have the tools to deal with any of those things, right?
Right.
So that was super, super challenging.
And what did you learn? What did you take away from that experience?
Oh man, I learned so much. And some of the things you learn at the time, aren't necessarily even the right things, right? Like, one of the things I learned at the time was I never want to be in a partnership again. I'm never going to have a partner again.
Sure. Yeah, the pendulum swings, right?
Yeah,
like all the way.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Like when I got divorced, I'm never going to be in a relationship again.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Or find the complete opposite human, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, Leslie, looking back, the list of what I learned is so long. At the time, what I learned was I didn't like this, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to be in this situation again. And so I'm never going to be, when that business ended, so a lot of things that I didn't realize because it's my inexperience and my immaturity, in retrospect, there were a lot of red flags. Like, everything had to be in my name because he had IRS issues.
Oh my gosh,
right?
Yeah.
So the fact that he had IRS issues never,
right?
Why should I think? That was never like a yellow flag or a red flag.
Yeah.
But the American Express bill, the AT&T bill, the lease, everything was in my name. So, somehow, and I don't even know how I did this, but I eventually got everything out of my name. But there was a lot of money owed. And so I think one of the things I learned then is I never want to be like in debt like this. I never want to, this is scary and bad. And, we were sending out a lot of direct mail, and we were using this company out of Pittsburgh, and we owed them a lot of money because we couldn't pay our bills. And they came out. This is like a movie. These big guys from Pittsburgh came out. They weren't like business people. And I'm like 24 years old. And they came back the next day with a moving company and literally took everything out of our office. Like, just took everything. Our computers, our desks, our chairs. We had a big bird cage in our lobby with my roommate had a cockatoo. They took the bird and the bird cage. They took like everything. Like, luckily they didn't take me.
Yeah, exactly.
But so anyways, yeah, lots of lessons. And the other thing too, I think I learned about having family work for you.
Yeah.
There were a lot of lessons around that.
Yeah, it's hard.
Sometimes it can work out. Most of the time, probably doesn't.
Yeah.
So keeping business and family separate is something I'd probably swing way over to the other end of the pendulum or the spectrum with.
Yeah. Okay. So lessons learned there. You go build the real estate firm, and then you move into this corporate environment. Yep. What were some of the big things that you learned kind of transitioning from, again, you had a massive business, a real estate business, and then coming into to go build something in this corporate infrastructure. Like, what was that like for you?
There were a couple things early on. One was it was new to Like if I wanted something done in the past, I would just do it or get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Now within the company, I couldn't just do that. Like I couldn't go to the marketing department and say, hey, I need this or I want this or how do we do this? Because they had other stuff they were doing, or the legal department or any of those things. So I had to learn patience. I'd learn how to, work with others and get things done in that type of environment. I also, because there was no one that knew how to do what needed to be done or what to do what needed to be done, I had to quickly learn to just trust my judgment and go do it. And if it worked, great. If it didn't, we'd fix it.
Yeah.
And that was a really valuable thing to learn and a good thing to learn. But I had to do that. If I didn't do that, nothing would have happened.
Right.
And we certainly wouldn't have succeeded. So, being okay with, just making a decision and running at it.
Yeah.
I also, and I've always been this way. I'm not shy about asking for help or asking for others. So early on, I learned to find people that had the expertise.
Yeah.
And then leverage them.
Yeah.
And, so I'd found people that did what I had done with other companies or in other industries and talked to them and asked them a bunch of questions and ended up ultimately hiring one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, so you go and build out this, international, arm of the business, move into the CEO role. What was that like? What was it like being the CEO of this largest real estate company in the world?
There were like, there were hints along the way. I remember when we moved into the new office. I don't know if you were at the company then. Okay. And it was being built out, and I was over there with Gary, and he was showing me his office downstairs, and he said, hey, this is going to be yours someday. You'll probably, have this. And I was like, yeah, what? Huh? What? And, or the president or CEO at the time would say things. When it finally happened, it happened kind of quickly. There was a, without going into a bunch of details, there was a decision for the current leadership to, become part of the board and not be in leadership position. So it was like, okay, well, who are we going to get? Chris is the person. Who's going to take the president spot? We'll figure that out. And then quickly they've said, okay, this is the person we want to take that spot.
Right.
That all happened. It didn't gradually happen, but when it happened quickly, like within 30 or 60 days.
Wow.
So then I was in a position where, now the good news is I'd been there for 5 years.
Yeah.
I'd worked daily with all the leadership and with the founder. So I knew the dynamics and I knew how to work within all that. What I wasn't prepared for, didn't know, I was paired with another leader, with the president.
Right.
And didn't really know that person. And had some really strange interactions, like early on.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys were very different.
Yeah.
Right.
And I remember his cousin was a very good friend of mine. He said, well, how will you ever be able to trust him? And I said, oh, I can get along with people. I can build trust. But I should have why are you asking me that?
Sure. Yeah. It was like a hint or something yeah.
So so anyways, there's a lot of things I had to learn.
Right.
Like how to work with a lot of different types of people.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So leave Keller Williams, move into, and you went and worked at a couple of other places. You were on the board.
Yeah, I left Keller Williams, and I was advising several companies, and had met a company called Loan Depot, and never met the founder. Met one of the executives, and he said, "Hey, well, if you're ever in Orange County, you should stop by, and we'd love to talk to you about the business." And so one day I was going to be there, and I called him. So I showed up their office, meet with this VP, and he goes, "Hey, we're going to go upstairs and meet with the CEO." And I like instantly in my mind, who's the CEO? Why we? I didn't even know. I was just coming by to chat with him, right? And so I didn't know who the CEO was. I didn't know who the company was. I didn't know anything because I didn't have a reason to.
Right.
I was on my way up the freeway. And so next thing you know, I'm in the CEO's office and we're talking and we hit it off like instantly because he's a big fisherman and I used to fish and we both grew up in the same area and he had a bunch of stuff and we started talking about for like a half hour. And meanwhile, the VP is sitting there going, oh my God. But we talked and he's like, people in real estate don't talk like you. People don't think like you think. We need to spend more time together. Would you want to have dinner one night? I said, sure. So, sometime later we had dinner and then I was like, hey, I need to, can we do this again? So I had breakfast and, by the 6th meeting with him, he's like, would you join somehow? Join me, be consultant, be whatever. And along those 6 meetings, we were just talking about ideas and where the industry is going and how things could change and how things could be better. And so then it was like, okay, I want you on the team. I want you part of this. Yeah. And then a few meetings later, and I hadn't been looking. I didn't know what I want to do, and I was like, hey, if it's a big enough opportunity and we can really do something impactful, I could be interested.
Yeah.
And he created a big opportunity and. He also demonstrated some things like in retrospect were important things to me at the time. I still had some contractual liabilities with Keller Williams, and I was getting out of those selling businesses and dealing with non-competes and everything else. And I was concerned there'd be an issue because Keller Williams owned a mortgage company. I'm going to work for a mortgage company. And I remember this meeting where he said, and I expressed that concern. He said, if they raise a sword, I'll raise a bigger one. I will protect you. I will indemnify you. You have nothing to worry about. And I was like, all right, this person has my back. And that's something that is always really key for me to be in an environment where you have that. Yeah. And so anyways, so that's...
It's interesting to find those things, like as you're in those relationships, like hindsight to say like this, these are like the value things that I need to have aligned, right?
Yeah. And there's usually, what I've experienced is you usually get really clear on those when you come out of a situation that wasn't a great situation. All right. When you come out of a relationship, and it wasn't a good relationship, you go, all right. I know what I don't want. I'm really clear on I'm really clear on what I want.
Right. Right.
And so that's the silver lining of those type of experiences. Yeah. So I was really clear on what I wanted and what I didn't want. Yeah. And so when you find that, you go, okay, this feels good.
Yeah. And so what were like takeaways, working at Loan Depot?
It was so it was is super interesting. I went from working day to day with a billionaire founder, self-made billionaire of Keller Williams, to working with the same type of individual at the second largest mortgage company in the country, and yet they were night and day different people. Both had their idiosyncrasies and everything else, but it was super valuable and enlightening to say, okay, here's 2 people who have achieved the highest level of success, but it couldn't have been more different. So, it was, and I'll share this. It's not a bad thing. It's just a factful thing. This new leader operated from confidence. He was a very confident person. And what I learned very quickly was that was really easy for me to deal with. Yeah. Like it was just like natural and didn't take any extra energy or didn't have to burn a whole bunch of calories to have to interact with them. It was like it was very easy to interact and do that. And so I was like, okay, this is like probably how it should be. How is
it easier? Like what, when because I think it's really important, that everybody's motivated differently, right? Like we like run differently when we're
Some
afraid,
people
when
run
we're confident,
some people are run towards goals. Some people run from fear.
Right, exactly.
So I'll use that example. When you have a fear-based person versus like the opposite of that, a confident person, dealing with a fear-based person takes a lot of extra energy because you're dealing with their stuff too and their reaction to things. And those people tend to have constant reactions to things, where a very confident person, like, it doesn't matter what the news says.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter what that article said.
Going.
Like,
this is the vision.
And that's, that's just noise. Where it sounds like, what are we going to do about this? And
Right.
It's like, oh, why do we have to do anything about it? Like,
right.
But that in their world, it's like, you have to do it.
It's real. That's what they're motivated by. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's where it can take more energy, right? Because you're just dealing with a different dynamic.
Well, how did that impact your leadership?
It just gave me more time and energy to do the job, right? To do the things that need to be done.
Yeah.
So in this company, I was at a company now that, was like 8 years old. It had reached incredible scale. Was the second largest lender. Rocket Loans was the largest, and so we were number 2. And so I also learned a lot about that industry, right? Because although in real estate you deal with mortgage people and mortgage companies every day, being inside of one, I learned more in that year and a half than I had in 20 years about the mortgage industry.
Yeah.
So that was cool to experience that and learn that.
Yeah.
Again, going to a so this is the first time in my career. So I sort of grew up within Keller Williams, right? I was there for 13 years and then became an executive, and everyone knew me. This is the first time going into another company as an executive, as a leader. And I remember making the conscious decision, hey, for the first, in my mind, I said 6 months, I'm just gonna watch, learn, and listen. And, I haven't earned the right to, change
insert
things.
Yourself. Too much, right?
So now I don't think it was 6 months, but it was a few months of me just doing that. And I think that in retrospect, with the dynamics in that company, the leadership in that company, I think it was the right thing to do. Maybe, I don't know that I'd change it, but but I also could see where if I came in as this, the former CEO of this company, now as the CEO of this company, that they're, could create a lot of resistance or anything else. And I had no interest in doing that. I wanted to figure out, how to work and succeed and win with the team I was on. So I just really treated everyone as teammates and myself as a teammate. And how can I be the best teammate?
That's awesome.
Where can I deliver the most value?
Yeah.
And that's what I did. So although I was there for only a year and a half, because I chose to jump into this other opportunity, I made just some great relationships and still have great relationships with the executives that were there, and made a impact. I remember when I left, a couple of the administrative staff came into my office, like 2 different ones on their own, and said, I just heard the news. I can't believe you're leaving. You're like, you're our favorite executive, and like those things. It's like, it was like things that caught me off guard. Like, oh, I was just being me, but thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that's special. Those are special things, right? Yeah. You can go and make impact, but when you have impact on independent or individual lives, it's like pretty special.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then what caused you to go to Movoto?
So I was an early investor in the company, and I was on the board of the company. So I started off as an advisor, and then I said, hey, would you consider being on our board? And I was. And at the time, the company was really starting to take off. At the same time, the mortgage industry was in a real downturn. And so all the things that I went to Loan Depot to, we couldn't do. We had to put on hold
Yeah.
for the like unforeseeable future because we had no idea what was going to happen to the industry. So a ton of margin compression. I had to lay off. We went from 7,500 employees down to like 4,500 employees in like 60 days.
Oh, wow.
And so I found myself there not able to like launch and do all the things we wanted to launch. It was more just like we had to take care of the core business.
Yeah.
And I was trying to, contribute wherever I could. I was literally spending time in the call center, helping them, be more efficient, more effective. I was spending time with our direct to consumer call reps and, helping them become more effective in dealing with consumers that were working with agents. I was like just trying to help wherever I could, but not doing the things I came there to. And so I equated to feeling like when they, in a horse race, when they put the horses in the starting gate and then they open it and
you just go. Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like I was in the starting gate and it wouldn't open. And I was there like,
I hear you.
I want to go, like, put me in coach. Let's do this.
Yeah.
But we couldn't. And I knew that. And they were a great company. They were super compensating me extremely well.
Yeah.
Treated me extremely well. But I didn't feel like I was being productive. I didn't feel like I was contributing at the level I could or wanted to. And that took me a while to realize that I don't like this. Doesn't feel good. Like I need to be productive. I mean, I was still getting there. One of the first people in that office, one of the last ones to leave,
right?
And doing whatever I could, but it wasn't
the stuff that drove
wasn't
you.
impactful. Like it wasn't big stuff. So at the same time, there's this little company going, we could really use you and you could really make a big impact. And I said, okay,
awesome.
Let's do it.
Okay. So what's next? Like what are you guys, what's the vision?
We're gonna keep growing this company. There's a as with a lot of companies, there's always three paths. You keep going and growing on your own. You acquire, if you want to do something big, you acquire a big company and then that catapults you, or you get acquired by a big company. So we're always very active on all three of those paths. And so I think in
looking around, seeing what's next.
So in 2025, one of those things will materialize.
Yeah.
And so we're always looking at companies and talking to companies that we can acquire. We have companies that's almost always talking to us. So
about acquiring you guys.
So so when the right thing happens, we'll pull the trigger.
Well, obviously the real estate industry is a topic of conversation, right? And all the changes that are kind of happening. Like, what do you see as, okay, this is what the real estate industry is going to look like in 10 years?
Yeah. I don't know about 10 years.
Okay,
it's like,
5.
All right.
3.
Next month.
Nobody knows.
There's people aren't going to stop buying and selling homes. And so that is now the percentages may change, the percentage of people that rent versus own may change, the demographics and how the different demographic groups make decisions, all that stuff changes. But the core industry itself is the core industry, and it won't change. Now, how agents operate, how mortgage companies operate, that will continue to evolve and change, because technology will continue to evolve and change.
Right.
And as technology changes, it impacts consumer behavior and consumer expectations, and develops and also impacts the capabilities of service providers and the technology that they can leverage. So I think there'll be a lot of exciting changes. There'll be new ways of doing business, new ways for people to buy homes and sell homes, new ways for people to help people buy homes and sell homes. So I just look at this. in my mind, change equals opportunity. Like
100%.
when someone says, what do you think will change? It's like, what opportunities are going to be? Like, there's going to be more and bigger opportunities. And it's just a matter of, I think the biggest challenge for most people is to be able to take advantage of opportunities, you have to be looking for them and recognize them.
Right.
And when people are reacting to change, they can't do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep,
When they're reacting to change, they're dealing with fear. They're dealing with what they like and what they don't like. They're dealing with, why. They're dealing with anger. They're like all those things.
Yeah.
And then you cannot be having those thoughts and be seeing opportunity at the same
100%,
time.
right.
So I think the people that can look for the opportunities and can recognize opportunities are the ones that will be able to take advantage of them.
Yeah. That's a proactive vision and strategy versus reactive.
I don't think I answered your question, what it's going to look like in 5 years, but it's going to be exciting.
Change.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. Well, where can people learn more about Movoto and what you guys are doing?
They can see I'm Movoto.com, or I'm on just about every social media platform. So people can find me there, reach out there, learn about what we're up to.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for,
thanks for being here.
This conversation. This is so great.
Yeah.
I love learning more about you always. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. And thank you guys for joining us. And please subscribe to the As You Are podcast on all platforms. And we'll see you guys again soon. Thank you.